Israel's Prime Minister trying to head off a Palestinian bid to join the International Criminal Court, a move that could expose Israel to war crimes complaints. Benjamin Netanyahu chaired a meeting at the Israeli Defense Ministry today to discuss a response to the move. Palestinians are looking at other avenues for ending the Israeli occupation after failed peace talks and a failed attempt to get the UN Security Council to intervene. Mr. Netanyahu says Palestinians don't have the legal right to join the ICC.
We expect the International Criminal Court to summarily dismiss the Palestinian Authority's duplicitous application because the Palestinian Authority is not a state. It is an entity that is allied with the terror organization Hamas, which commits war crimes, and the State of Israel is a law-abiding state with a moral army that keeps all international laws. We will defend Israeli soldiers in the same way that they protect us.
Our next guest is optimistic that 2015 could bring some positive developments in the region as a whole. Aaron David Miller joins us now. He advised 6 US Secretaries of State on the Middle East peace process, now Vice President of New Initiatives at the Woodrow Wilson International Centre. Always good to see you, Aaron. I want to cover a few things, but this signing of the Rome Statute, the move towards the ICC, give us your thoughts on the timing and what it would mean. Calculated risk or strategic move?
You know, Woody Allen said that 90% of success in life is just showing up. He's actually wrong. 90% of success in life is showing up at the right time. And I suspect that not only on the substance is this going to be complicated, this move by the Palestinians, but also on timing. Look, you have 80 days before an election, which may or may not be decisive. But I think as frustrated and as desperate as the Palestinians may be, there really was no, I think, compelling case to basically create a campaign ad for the re-election of the current Israeli prime minister. If that's their objective and their goal, I think they have furthered that that campaign in going down this road to the ICC. So I know they've been told to wait. There's an enormous amount of impatience. Mahmoud Abbas is a good man. He doesn't want to go back to the armed struggle. He'd argue that negotiations right now are probably pointless. I think that's true. But frustration and desperation isn't alleviated or made better, frankly, by a move that will, I think, do quite a lot to weaken the Palestinian case.
It is, you know, you've got Israel objecting. The US, as you say, it says it'll be counterproductive, but counterproductive to what? There is no peace process.
Well, that's true, and that I think we wouldn't be having this conversation if the factors that were required to create a serious negotiating process and to actually get to a two-state solution were present. Those factors are leaders who are on both sides, who are capable of making the kinds of decisions required on Jerusalem, border, security, refugees. It means an administration in Washington that has both the will and the skill and looks at Israeli-Palestinian peace as a priority. And frankly, it also involves a region that isn't in the process of complete meltdown, which has made these sorts of decisions extremely uncertain and risky. And
it requires, of course, partners who actually do want a peace process themselves. You mentioned the Israeli elections. The right and extreme right, for that matter, are making a lot of noise these days in Israel. Does that concern you? Are the more extreme voices representative these days?
You know, Israel has moved to the right, but in the case of on the narrow issue of this particular election, that in some respects means that the right has moved away from the current Israeli prime minister, who's lost a lot of credibility and a lot of points in the polls. If becoming prime minister was just a question of who's the fairest in the land, I suspect Benjamin Netanyahu would win by default. But it means putting together a viable coalition, and that still right now, I suspect, might favor the right. But who knows? I'm predicting, frankly, because I'm tired of my own annoyingly negative analysis on all of these issues. We've talked about this so many times, Michael.
We have.
At least decision points in 2015 on Iran and in Israel, and perhaps even in Washington as the president watches the sands pass through his presidential hourglass, that maybe, in fact, 2015 will, in fact, produce some openings that could lead to less annoyingly negative results.
Yeah, your article on CNN.com was refreshingly pushing a little optimism, Aaron, which was nice to see. Saying basically things aren't as bad as you might think they are. You mentioned Iran. Let's talk about that briefly. Fearful talk from Israel, some in the US Congress, of course. Do you see a path to, if not normalization with Iran, some sort of transition as the talks go on?
Well, I think it's a transaction, not a transformation. I mean, dealing with Cuba, watch in a Republican-controlled Washington, at least on the legislative side, is going to be complicated enough. I think if, in fact, there is an agreement on the nuclear issue, it's a business deal. It's going to be accompanied by profound distrust on both sides, and by regional objectives between the U.S. and Iran that are actually quite in conflict on matters like Hezbollah. And Syria. So, no, if it happens, I think it'll be gradual, incremental. But the question is, will you even get a nuclear deal? I'm suggesting that the alternatives will, in fact, serve to focus the mind, perhaps in Tehran, and maybe, in fact, you can get an agreement.
Better than the alternatives. I don't want to let you go without talking Iraq, which is always on my radar. Can you foresee ISIS, notwithstanding a cohesive, functioning, quote-unquote, nation of Iraq, ever emerging from the sectarian mess that exists now and likely won't go away?
I think that Iraq, it's going to be very hard to put the Iraqi Humpty Dumpty back together again, or take it to a place where, frankly, in its modern history, it hasn't ever been, which is a coherent, cohesive state with a fair power sharing on economics and politics among Sunnis, Kurds, and Shia. No, I don't think that's where we're going. Maybe, in fact, you can stabilize it, begin to create some measure of equity and fairness among the confessional groups, and brunt, I'm hoping, ISIS's efforts to expand into Iraq. But no, Michael, this is a generational problem. It's a long movie. Next president of the United States is going to be dealing with this one too.
Yeah, maybe the one after as well. Aaron David Miller, always a pleasure to have you on the program. A couple of great articles on CNN.com and also foreignpolicy.com. Urge people to check those out. Thank you very much again.
Thanks, Michael. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Aaron.